have been doing test data management for quite some time, but NIBC is still relatively new for me, so I'm quite honored to already standing at this podium. I've been working with NIBC since November of this year, and we were quite a long way already into our test data management journey. And so I'm telling a story which has already previously started. So I'm telling that story today. But currently, the project that we were running last year has been handed over to the run, which means we've put it in a service. And as part of that service, I'm currently functioning as a service delivery manager. And this test data management journey has been split up in different phases. As such, we're currently working on our provisioning bit, for which I'm functioning as a project manager. As said, I'm still quite new to NIBC, so if you have any NIBC specific questions, I would like to answer them, but probably Ralph, my colleague over there, is better equipped to answer that question. But I'll do my best. I would like to start with explaining a little bit about NIBC. For today, I can understand that not everybody has heard of us, but also I want to share with what ambition we have started our journey, where we are today, and because it's all about the journey and not about specific solutions and stuff like that, I would like to get into the journey log with some process governings and of course learnings, because we all work as human beings, so we're learning constantly because we make mistakes, and we'll try to develop them into better results in the future. So we're also going to look at the roadmap for that. Special about NIBC is that it's already founded a long time back with a different goal than nowadays. Goal previously was to finance business owners, especially for rebuilding the Netherlands after the war. Of course, we don't currently do that. Currently, we are more aimed at financing real estate, shipping, and infrastructure. Still on a business level, but also we still have quite a number of private clients in the savings and mortgage department. Anyone notices? We don't have, how do you call it in English? Betaalrekeningen. Current accounts. Sorry for that. We do that with 700 people. And those 700 people are split across our head office in The Hague, but we also have offices in London, Brussels, and Frankfurt. And whoever recognizes this bit can recognize that we have a pretty good view when we look out of our office, because this is that view we have, the Peace Palace in The Hague. Looking at our ambition, because we've started our journey last year, but that isn't quite right. We've taken quite a long time, numerous years actually, to look at the market before we actually started our journey. And the reason for that is that we want to be first time right. We don't want to do stuff thoroughly, and we want to be ready for the future, because we have, for instance, a test automation ambition, like lots of organizations. That also means, important to us, we want to have a centralized solution. We are a heavy regulated business. We're a bank, so we have lots of stuff for which we need to be compliant, and we want to do that in a central place. mentioning compliance, we also want that by default. And in doing so, we would like to have something like DATPROF, commercial off the shelf. And if we look at our current state, first time right, we're not quite there yet. Of course not, because we're still moving along that journey to the future. Compliance, we're getting there, but there's still some developments to be made. And the test automation bit, we need to develop on, but that's part of our roadmap. So our journey log. Whoever has done a test data management implementation before might recognize all the bits and pieces. We do an RFI, followed up with an RFP. An assessment is always going to take place because we need to define what are our options in the market. From those options, we want to have proof of their concept before we're actually going to start an implementation. I'm not going into depth for all these bits and pieces, but some interesting bits from our assessment are, for instance, that we have a SLA. Well, people can recognize that, but on a data restore level. So each and every time our applications want to have a restore made available, a refresh of their data, that can be almost immediately, but it might also mean that they have to wait on it because our team, which are going to supply you with that data, are really busy. And sometimes that can mean you need to wait for a week. That might be something which is not really acceptable from our delivery perspective. Also, knowing your data, how is your application organized? That is also something that you really need to know about. Is that knowledge available? Is that also incorporated in your way of working? Might be that you have, how do you call it? If you have certain applications which are vendor-based, it might mean that you have all that knowledge available at your vendor and not on site. Something to think about. So, moving into our implementation phase, we had two very clear priorities. One is to anonymize, because we need to think about our compliance. That doesn't mean that we weren't compliant in the first case, but it's a big priority. And the second is being provisioning. Looking at our governance, we try to incorporate all that we've done into a standard, so that we can show our teams which we support what we do, how we do it, and when we do it, but also incorporate how we have different solutions in place. For instance, how does a SaaS application compare to a on-premise solution? And what are the differences in between? And to supply them with their onboarding, their offboarding, their incidents, which of course will be there, we develop some processes so that we also, again, have a clear view on what to do when and who is involved at what time, and how to realize the solution at hand. In the end, we also need to report. As mentioned, we now have an availability of compliance state, so we also do compliance reporting on that. Who is able to say we are on board and have covered everything that we need to do? I'm going really quickly. Which means I'm going into learnings. Any questions so far, by the way?
What was the biggest challenge system-wise in the whole chain?
System-wise?
Technological challenge?
Then I'm going to look at Joost, because Joost had a really beautiful PowerPoint on connector availability, and those have been implemented at NIBC as well, because you saw a Salesforce connector and you saw a Workday connector. Both of these applications are available at NIBC, and the challenge especially is, of course, having that end-to-end, and it's a good sidestep, because of course at some point in time you forget to tell something. In the implementation phase we had two very distinct priorities, one being anonymization and one being provisioning, and you get into difficulties. So when talking about provisioning, we found during the project that we had some concerns to address. And the concerns were about architecture, security, and all that kind of stuff. And we were talking about that for such a long time that in the end that second priority was delayed. Meaning that we only had a anonymization project left last year, which is also the reason why we're doing that now. As I said during the introduction, I'm currently working on that provisioning bit. So the actual bit, then I'm going to skip back to the learnings, is point-to-point connectivity between applications, which is at this moment in time the biggest issue. Because we had, for the applications which were already using scripting, for instance, for which we introduced a less rigorous way of anonymization, we basically broke the chain of consistency for these applications. So rebuilding that one is currently a big priority, and at this moment the biggest concern when we look at testing together with the anonymization. So we're taking baby steps here. Yeah. First the anonymization, which is more flexible by using DATPROF, but as a result we need to also fix that end-to-end connectivity or point-to-point connectivity even. Does that answer your question? It's a little bit elaborate because we have multiple things on a complexity level. So if you look at an application with the most complexity from an anonymization standpoint, then it would be Workday, then it would be Salesforce. Yeah. But if we look at overall over the landscape, it's more the point-to-point connectivity at this moment in time.
But in a way, for both those examples, you took all the data out of the source system and got it locally and then did anonymization.
Yeah.
Which I would say would be the easy way.
That would be the easy way.
You have control, and that's always the problem.
Yeah. but the Workday data is not the same as the Salesforce data.
Yeah.
That's a totally separate business, sort of say, separate piece of the bank. So that data is not related. So there we don't have that specific connectivity that we need to create again. But for other applications, we do. Another learning is that no application is the same. There are different kind of maturity levels within an application team, on testing, on knowledge, and you need to take care of that. And that doesn't mean that they're not mature or anything. It can also be that what I said earlier, that you're doing things more from a local, from a vendor standpoint. If the vendor takes care of your development and your testing, and you're only working on an acceptance level, then you have a different level of knowledge which comes forth in your test data management project. And we need to be aware, and we need to solve those kind of knowledge issues. Two other things which I couldn't cover in some kind of drawing or otherwise. Provisioning and anonymization should be a joint priority, and I heavily believe that one, because it will take care of part of your compliance, and it will also take care of having everybody involved. What do I mean by that? We have a third party which is supplying us with a restore, so a data refresh. They're supplying that one at some point, and we have informed teams, well, you have access to your runtime environment. You need to click that button after you've done a restore, and if you click that button, the anonymization will run for your test environment, and then you are ready to start testing again. How many people will actually do that at first glance? You are incorporating a new way of working. That will take time. It will be totally different if you say, we have a means of provisioning your data. You don't have to ask for a restore anymore. You can just click this button over here, and then you have your data instantly, or almost instantly. This is a totally different means of, one, communication, but also of introducing a new way of working, because everybody is interested in having control over a data refresh on their environment. And especially from a project standpoint, we were really fond of our calculations, because we kept it within 5% of our original calculation after we've actually concluded the project. So we can actually forecast properly. That's nice.
You were 5% under budget, or?
Of course. Having said that, how does our future roadmap look like? Because we have invested heavily on our priority 1 implementation, anonymization. We left the provisioning bit a little bit leaning, so we actually want to have, as soon as possible, an automated refresh function. And with an automated refresh function, I don't mean subsetting, but I mean actually a full copy restore of your data, but of course anonymized. Why do I measure my words on that, because if you are going to really look into subsetting, you need to have that knowledge about your data model. And one of our learnings was that we might not have that knowledge available. So that will take a lot of time and effort to create. But we also want to start going into that compliance by default state. And if you have an automated refresh available, a full copy of data, which is anonymized previously, and people can start restoring that one, then I'm already at that compliance by default state. Another bit, of course, we broke that point-to-point chain. We want to restore that. So having that automated refresh in place enables us to have a means to start with recreating the end-to-end consistency on a landscape level. That's our base. And if we have our base, then we can start working on the knowledge bits. So then subsetting becomes interesting to be a point of interest and be a point on the roadmap. Having subsetting, now we're getting somewhere because we're working with less data. We can supply that data fast. Test automation. Why not? And having all of that, then the road to the future is open. We can start defining what else would we like to do. I think this is the base. And the road ahead is empty. So we can get into our heads, fantasize on what we would like, and start developing that one. But let's get our base secure first.